Hello and welcome back to Sean in the Shed. On the show today, we've got Brad Zomick, who's the Vice President of Marketing at Forage, which is a virtual work experience platform. Welcome to the show, Brad.
Thanks for having me, Sean. Great to be here.
And we always start out by describing where you were born, where you were educated, and how you started out in your career. So perhaps you could share that with the audience.
Sure. I was born in Queens, New York. I'm educated, by the public school system, here where I live today in Long Island. I went to undergrad, got my bachelor's at Cornell in marketing and management. And I also have an MBA focused on international business in China. And the question how I ended up where I am today is a long one, but I'll try to tell the short story. So coming out of college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I think the first arc of my career, I guess, I almost felt like the Roomba. I'd hit the wall and kind of back up and try something else. And that first kind of 6 years, I was in kind of fintech, but this is before fintech was cool. So this is almost 20 years ago now. I guess after about 5 years of that, I kind of realized I didn't love it. And I kind of grabbed the bull by the horns. And that's when I decided to go back to business school. And I wanted to kind of go to China and do business internationally, help American companies do business in China, evaluate their market there. And I left New York for about 4 years. And, I really enjoyed that experience. I got really rich in life experience there. And I think I ended up in a management consulting role that I actually, after getting there, I enjoyed the journey, but I actually didn't enjoy the job. So I came back to New York, and this is 2012 when I kind of hit a hard reset, and I decided to do online marketing. And I decided to do that because number one, I it was part of my major undergrad, and I never did it. But two, I wanted to do digital and online because I can potentially travel again and do it all online and not, have to be tethered to New York. The irony is that I met my wife around that time, and she works for New York City, the government. And, most government employees are lifers. So I'm here forever now. But I came back and I started learning as much as I could about marketing online. And I realized very quickly that unlike coding and engineering and design, those are kind of things that today are that you can learn online. You can do online and learn online in the sandbox. You can create an app, a website, design a flyer or a brochure or a digital ad, and it never sees the light of day. With marketing, you really can't do that. You have to have a website. If you want to learn SEO, you need content, landing pages, web pages. You want to kind of run ad sets, to test their efficacy. You need kind of budget and money to put in a platform like Facebook or, Google AdWords. So very quickly, I realized I need to find some sort of avenue to a real site, and and this is in my early 30s. I did an unpaid internship for 6 weeks, and I think it was fortuitous because I did it for a company called Skilled Up, and that kind of was my kind of leg into marketing and ed tech and career tech and learning tech at the same time. And it was 2012. It was the year of the MOOC, and it was an online course search engine. So the cool thing was in that kind of 6 week it was called Skillternship. I was able to kind of use a bunch of our partners were online course providers, and I got to use a bunch of these premium marketing courses. So in 6 weeks I did, it's designed for actually designed to be 3 months for kind of people in college or recent grads. And I kind of did it in half the time. And I was like, I want to do more. And I ended up kind of joining the company as an employee, and we grew it. And this was also at the same time, it was the dawn of inbound marketing, or when it was inbound marketing was really blowing up. So, and I was, basically, cut my teeth on SEO, content marketing, content creation, blogging. And I during that period, I built the website up to probably 500,000 kind of page views a month, email lists of probably 80,000 people. And a community around this company, Skilled Up, where young people can kind of, pursue avenues, explore and learn to do something they love. And then from there, I went to go work at a company called Pipedrive, and I did kind of similar remit, audience development, content marketing. And that was, I pivoted into SaaS. And that was I guess, a nice kind of, pivot, because it was SMB SaaS, which is similar to B2C. It's high volume, it's inbound. and it's a shorter sales cycle. And I had similar success there. And then, things didn't work out there. This is a longer story, but I'll kind of skip that. And that kind of opened the door for me to get back into learning through software and B2B. Joined a company called PathGather, which was on the cutting edge of the learning technology space. One of the pioneers of the concept of the learning experience platform, which is the incumbent to the learning management system, and had success there. Through the revenue and 4.5x. We exited to Degreed, which is the leader in LXP space today, at about, I want to say, like 5 million in revenue. And I spent 2 years at Degreed continuing to grow the LXP category as and headed up their demand generation function. And most recently, I joined a company called Forage, which is pioneering this concept of virtual work experience. And we provide, I guess, it's a marketplace, so there's two ends of the spectrum. For students, we provide an avenue for discovery, to discover career options, to learn some micro skills around careers, to learn about companies, and to have confidence to have interviews. Now, on the other side of this, we partner with companies to create the courses. Companies like JP Morgan, Citigroup, Boston Consulting, L'Oreal, Microsoft, and we partner with them to create these immersive, interactive experiences. But they're also, I would say, snackable, right? They're 4 to 8 hours in content, and with a task. So in that process, the student, gets to know the company, department, a role, and company gets a new signal of intent. Somebody who completes one of these courses knows a lot. It shows that they actually, some, grit, if you will, and perseverance to go through that, at the collegiate level, right? And companies get, a little bit of work sample as well. So it's a really kind of a paradigm shift, right? Because what they have done is now taken training, which would kind of go at, the first months or years of joining a company, and they've open sourced it and actually kind of created new signals back and forth to what, previously a student, their signal was like GPA and extracurriculars in the format of resume, right? And companies, would do kind of career fairs and a career website, and, which was all that really people had, right? And that would lead to kind of, I guess, like less than ideal outcomes. Students arrive at companies, not really know what they're supposed to do. They don't know a ton about the company and job role. Managers are kind of frustrated. And then companies have to invest tons of money, millions in training over the course of their, early years there. And, for companies that like hire like a lot of, junior talent, the attrition rate in the first couple of years, I think by year 3 is probably 80% of cohort has probably moved on to something else. So we're hoping to kind of solve that. And, so I would say, at a micro level, we improve a signal, lead to a better fit, a more ready employee, who's really excited to join a company and is more effective. And then, at the macro level, we kind of scale that, right? So it's digital, it's always on, and, 24/7, 365. And instead of going to, sending campus recruiters to 20 universities or 300 universities, they can go anywhere in the world, right? And what that introduces is kind of diversity of access to candidates. So I think what was only available to kind of like its elite universities is now available to everybody. Companies get a little bit more scale, and they can, for obviously diversity and inclusion is really, a big trend right now, and companies can use that. Our platform is a mechanism to hire, representative of what the population looks like today. And, they can hire, I guess the people they need, that are more effective and really excited to be there. And at the same time, to get to educate the workforce of tomorrow, so obviously, in the world of employment, I guess, 1 or 2% of the funnel, gets the job, but, a lot of people never hear back from a company, or, and a lot of people, or they get, through late in the process and they get let down, but this leaves them with a really great experience. They learn from a company, and now they have a little bit of skills and confidence to go to another company that maybe is a similar role that they're really passionate about, and have a really great interview and get that job. So it's a really exciting place to be.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because obviously you've changed careers and you've had to reinvent yourself a few times. Do you think if you'd had a virtual work experience platform available when you were starting out, that would have helped you in your career? Maybe fail fast at, when you were starting out in your initial career, which obviously gave you the travel to China, but ultimately you didn't like the job. Do you think a virtual immersive work experience platform would have helped you in your decision making?
Oh, no doubt, and I think, yeah, like I could only imagine what my life would be, but hindsight's 2020. I think it's magic, and what is available to students today. It's just really like a beautiful thing, and really high utility. Yeah, so I think back to kind of my time leaving university. I kind of obviously university is a place for enlightenment and innovation. And it's things have changed over the last kind of 50 years, where kind of the work companies expect a lot from the university to prepare people for college, and it's just not what it was designed for. And there's the whole kind of, I guess, social experience too. It's like a rite of passage. I guess meet a lot of people and have fun and participate in extracurricular activities. And I personally, I got to the end and I just was ill prepared for the workforce, and kind of it led to that kind of Roomba situation where I kind of like would take these jobs and it'd be cool. I'm like, great, I have a job, but within a year the new car smell wears off, and I'm like, this is not fulfilling. Like, I'm bored. Like, I learned everything I can. I can't. There's no progress. There's nowhere for me to go here, right? And that is kind of frustrating, right? The career is like a very visceral thing, I mean, you spend so much of your life there, that like if you're unhappy, it could make you like literally sick and sad and depressed. And I went through some low points, when I was like, not really knowing what's next. And but I would say after the first time I kind of decided to redirect, it became a lot easier to kind of pivot and iterate and do different things, and grow my career, right? It's almost better to realize failure quicker. And I think the first one took the longest. Probably took 2.5 years before I realized, like, this is not for me. I need to do something drastic and different. Yeah, so I think the beautiful thing about living in today is that, like, if you're not happy in a job and you want to do something new and different, and it's like a digital career, like coding or design or product management or marketing, these are all things that you can probably learn within a span of 6 to 18 months and quickly kind of jump into kind of a new place where you'll be a lot happier, or you can actually explore for a little bit and see if that glove fits before kind of moving on to something else or pivoting and iterating.
No, that's really interesting. If you just joined us, you're watching Sean in the Shed. And on the show today, we've got Brad Zomick, who's the Vice President of Marketing at a company called Forage, which is all about virtual work experience. If you've got friends, family, and other people that might be interested in this video, do comment on the comment stream. You can hashtag share Sean in the Shed on social media, and we are looking for future guests of the show. So if you're interested, do direct message me here on LinkedIn. And the question that myself and Brad would like to ask you, the audience, today is, what are you learning about in the world of marketing? If you've got thoughts, questions, ideas, and you want to share what you're learning, just fill in the comment stream. But let's fire that question back to you, Brad. What are you learning about in the world of marketing?
Cool. Yes. Great question. Because I'm always, trying to learn something. I think, when I was early in my marketing career, I take a lot of courses as much as I could. And then as I I think online courses are probably geared towards more kind of like early in the learning journey of any given skill for that matter, or career. But since then, I've kind of evolved. I read a lot of blog content, and these days it's books and meetings with people who are peers. It's like playing tennis, in terms of peers. You want to talk to people who are probably your level or a little bit better to kind of learn from them. So I'm doing that. I'm playing tennis with, via book reading, right? I'm reading 2 books. One is called The Next CMO. And this is a book by Peter Mahoney. He's the CEO of a company called marketing SaaS software as a service called Plana. It's a marketing planning software. And that's more about operational excellence. How do you kind of, set good strategy and goals, align tactics and reporting to that, and kind of manage up to CEO and board level. And I think that's setting me up for probably where I want to go in the next stage of my career. to be kind of, right now I'm a VP of marketing. I'm hoping to kind of climb the marketing ladder and be a CMO, and I want to earn it, right? I want to be able to kind of walk the walk and talk the talk. And I think this book will help me do that. The other book I am reading is an amazing book. It's called Play Bigger by Christopher Lochhead, and he's got some co-authors. This is about category design. So, there's this idea, whatever industry you're in or whatever you're selling, there's this, the audience or the market tends to kind of put products in buckets. This thing I have here is a mouse, right? And I have like, a widget or whatever it is. And, so like I'm in this, new kind of category of software, and we decided to call it virtual work experience. And, previously I worked at a company, Degree and Pathgather. We were in this category of learning experience platform. If a company doesn't really design the bucket, so the market will assign something else for you that you might not like. And I think I think LXP is a good example of that, because when we were starting that category, there were 3 players. There was Pathgather, Degree, and Edcast. We were all calling ourselves something different, right? Edcast was a knowledge management platform. Pathgather called itself a talent development platform, and Degree, just kind of was more a generic learning platform. And none of them really stuck. Josh Burson, this kind of analyst and thought leader in the learning industry, decided to call us a learning experience platform. So that's what everybody calls, those products today. And I think that's to the chagrin of probably the CEOs and chief marketers. I think those people wanted to be seen as a little bit more higher level, I guess, impacting like kind of the business, as opposed to kind of an experience. But to be honest, I think the category is fine. We had shifted at Pathgather at least to LXP, and even Degree for a while, kind of eventually kind of adopted, it might not say it in front and center on their site, but they had all sorts of content brochures that said it was an LXP. Today, they're actually kind of moving on to the next lily pad reskilling. But here I am, reading this book. I think the first time around, I was kind of faking it till I made it. And now I'm reading this book because I want to create and I want to design the category of virtual work experience, because there's a lot of benefits to designing the category.
And the category of virtual work experience hasn't been won yet. So what's the competition like? Because maybe you could explain to the audience, I've also read this book, Play Big, and the importance of dominating a category and how you do that through design.
Yeah, so category design, the way that kind of works is like the first mover in a category doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be a winner, right? But the category designer, sets themselves up for a higher chance of winning, because they've kind of tightened the message and the value proposition and anchored it to this kind of frame of reference that just feels inevitable, and have built this kind of trust and credibility. So I think a good example is probably Zoom. Video communication, right? But like, we've been conferencing online for probably about 10 years. There was actually even back 20 years, there was WebEx and Citrix, having virtual meetings, right? And then Google had kind of like, Google Hangout, and there were all sorts of other products that existed, but Zoom comes along and calls it video conferencing, and it puts a lot of marketing oomph behind it. And I think, like PR and, paid campaigns, ad campaigns. I'm sure you've been to an airport anytime in the last few years. There's usually like a giant wall of Zoom communication. And I think there's a lot more that goes into that. There's kind of evidence. There's telling a story, like a narrative that like the world, is a little bit broken. It's almost like in the Matrix, right? You see a glitch in the Matrix, and then you realize that everything's changing, and you need to be kind of on the other side of that, right? You want to take the red pill. It's going to be a rocky journey, but you're going to manifest your own destiny and step into the future, ride the wave into the future. And I think within kind of HR, there's a similar kind of change going on, and the status quo is starting to crumble underneath us, right? The sand is shifting, right? And we need to kind of get on the surfboard and ride the wave of digital transformation. And I think generically, and I think like, for virtual work experience, like the status quo of kind of on-campus recruiting has kind of led to a what we have today. We're kind of, heavy investment in training, frustrated kind of with the talent that we have, and then people leave us anyway, and like the idea is that like the paradigm shift, right, is that, we want to kind of push the training, open source it, and give it to everybody. And it just really changes the the texture of the interview cycle, right? And I think behind the scenes, there's already a lot of things changing. Students demand more, a better experience from companies. Companies want to be more diverse. They want to have better experiences, and this kind of fits into that kind of like changing environment, right? And helps propel you into the future and set you up to be quote unquote future proof.
And I guess, like you say, if 98% of the candidates aren't getting a job through your virtual work experience platform, they're at least learning something and there's a takeaway. And the companies are able to set tasks and to see how people perform. So maybe it's more of a win-win versus, the traditional approach where someone applies for a job via a career page. And like you say, they're often not given the feedback as to why they weren't successful. So if we talk about new categories and how you win it, how do you win a category? Is it down to luck? I mean, Zoom's done pretty well because now we call them Zoom calls. They've clearly dominated the market by meeting happy. Maybe their software was easier to use. It was more reliable. But when it comes to virtual work experience, which is clearly a new category, but potentially massive market, how can you become the Uber for work experience?
Well, I think number one is kind of like getting buttoned up on the position and the value, right? And translating that into a narrative, that says, all right, the status quo is not working. Things are changing. And if you don't change, you're going to get left behind. We can help you. We can be your spiritual guide to do that. And then there's a bunch of like evidence. So that's like stories, testimonials, quotes, and all that stuff gets kind of weaponized into kind of marketing programs and channels. So, we create, blog content, video content, white papers, ebooks. We do webinars, and that there's like a very like, and the underpinning of that is like, a core message, that like, don't get left behind. This is the future. Don't get left behind. Come with us. And then, basically, and concentrating resources, resources, money and people and activities around these concepts that are kind of like the key concepts, for us, it would be kind of, well, actually there's many concepts really, but within each, market, there's probably a few key themes that you would want to concentrate all the energy and resources. And over the course of the year, you want to say that stuff over and over again. And, focusing on at the right message, the right time in the right channel. So there's a lot of, I think for us too, it's like we got to focus on the right market. We don't want to basically quote unquote spray and pray the message. We want to focus it on the right companies, the right job titles, and kind of give them the right message to kind of really resonate with them and kind of make them realize, okay, you're right. The world is not quite right. We need to do something different. We need a solution. And because this company kind of helped me, pull the wool over my eyes, like I trust them. I want them to guide me to that special place and be ready for the future. So I think, that's kind of how you, obviously it's a little bit theoretical, but you can kind of see that Zoom has kind of done that, that like the status quo wasn't working. We have a new solution, the best in class, and we're going to spend a lot of money to kind of put the ads everywhere. And then, they had built a really good brand, and now the pandemic comes along and like, they're the only game in town, and their market cap goes up, 4x, and they're worth more than like car companies now. So it works, and Play Bigger actually kind of like spells out a playbook for how to do this.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because if you look at Uber and Lyft, when it comes to hailing taxis and taxis on demand, the market cap and the value of Uber compared to Lyft is many, 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 many times more. You think the gap would be small, but it's not. It's something like 50x that Uber's worth compared to Lyft. And then you've got, Tesla in the new category of electric cars, dominant. I'm sure it'll get competition from Chinese manufacturers. And then you've got the whole issue of space travel, the new category around who's going to win that race to space. Let's shift our attention now towards the crisis. And we talked about virtual work experience. We talked about career reinvention, really, how perhaps you might start on one path in your career and have to change. During the pandemic, clearly people are having to reskill, relearn, recreate and reinvent themselves. What would your advice be? What would your top 3 tips be, Brad, for people that are having to change careers?
Sure. Well, I think people should look at crisis as an opportunity, right? I think it's easy to freeze up and kind of, especially those who have been affected, right? And, potentially laid off or furloughed. It's easy to kind of get, depressed or concerned or worried and not do anything, kind of be paralyzed. But the crisis is a great time to kind of reflect on kind of where you're at in life and what your goals are and invest in yourself. So I think, number one, and like I mentioned earlier, in this day and age, you can reinvent yourself very quickly. And now is a great time to consider that. And if you're happy where you are and you just want to get to the next level, take the time to kind of plan and, basically like think about what are the tools, maybe it's online courses. I actually have taken a few courses earlier this year, in innovation and brand strategy. Actually, I spent about $3,000 in on learning this year, outside of my books, during the pandemic. Right. And so there was a little bit of a hiatus that I took between Degree and Forage. And, I took some time to reinvent myself. So I'd say learning is a big part of that. That's a step one, like recognize the opportunity and figure out what you need to learn to get there. 2 other things I would think, that I would look into to kind of like, navigate the pandemic, is the connection to people, right? And I think some of this could tie into your learning initiatives. Like, it's one thing to learn, but then you got to network into opportunity. So there's like, connection to people. There's like, in your career, you want to build a network to kind of bridge yourself to like your next lily pad. But, just in the context of the pandemic, it's easy to get isolated. And a lot of not so great things can happen from isolation, depression, anxiety. I think, a sad example of that is Tony Hsieh from Zappos just recently passed away. And I read a couple of articles on it, and it seemed like the pandemic hit him pretty hard. And, he was struggling for connection and turned to kind of, drugs to medicate, and it didn't work out, too well. So I think it's important to maintain connection to people. Obviously there's like a career component to it, but like, keep in touch with your friends and family, look for excuses to get in touch with people, check in. And if you're feeling great too, that's fine. But like, what about everyone else, right? You never know how someone else is feeling, right? People deal with kind of the isolation differently. And like, it's never too late to check in on somebody, especially if you're concerned or worry about them. I think the final piece is your health. Being cooped up in a house for now it's like almost 9 months of the year, right? You need to think about how you're going to take care of yourself. And I think I neglected myself a little bit, and I was kind of doing walks, and then kind of winter came, and then this new job, and I've been sitting at a desk for a while, and I have a herniated disc, and it flared up. So now I realize that I need to kind of take care of my health a little bit more. I stretch every day. I go for walks. I have a standing desk. So focus on your health. What can you do to kind of keep your body? So part of it was keep your mind flexible, right? And then you also need to kind of keep your body kind of active, right? Otherwise, it can lead to some physical health issues. So, and then you get through the pandemic and you're feeling kind of limber and and set up for kind of the post-COVID era, right? And ready for your next career move.
Some good thoughts there, Brad. If people want to connect with you, you're clearly on LinkedIn. What's the best method? LinkedIn, what are the website addresses that people should go to?
Sure. I would say there's a few ways to get in touch with me. You can look me up on LinkedIn, just pop my name, Brad Zomick, into the search and, do a connection request. You can feel free to reach out to me at Forage, and my email there is brad.zomick@theforage.com. So it's not forage.com, theforage.com. So yeah, I would love to kind of connect with people. If anything that I was talking about today resonates with people have questions, they can kind of come to me, and happy to chat.
It's been really interesting talking about your own personal journey, how you've pivoted a number of times in your career, then talking about category design and virtual work experience, and how maybe leading companies, new companies, can create new market opportunities. So it's been fantastic talking to you today, Brad. Do stay in touch, and thank you to you, the audience, for watching Sean in the Shed. Have a great evening, and bye for now.
Thanks, Sean. Great to be here.